Yesterday, we talked about Jesus' first miracle recorded in the Gospel of John, the changing of water into wine. And though I didn't really dwell on it, it was a sign pointing to the nature of the kingdom of heaven. I only mentioned that it was a sign in passing. But in today's Gospel reading from the Daily Lectionary, John returns us to the same place, Cana in Galilee, and tells us about a second sign. Today, we'll talk about signs, what they are, and what this one means. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Saturday, December 30th, 2023. If you've ever sat down and read the Gospels one after another in quick succession, you realize just how different the Gospel of John is from the other Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Even if you can't immediately name the differences, you instinctively sense that they just read differently in many ways. One of the big differences between John and the other Gospels is the number of times Jesus goes to Jerusalem. In the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus only goes to Jerusalem at the very end, both the end of the Gospel accounts and the end of his ministry. But John places Jesus in Jerusalem at least 3 different times. Today's story from John takes place immediately after Jesus returns from his first journey to Jerusalem. That's not particularly important for today's story, except that it underlines the idea that some time has elapsed since his first visit to Cana and the first of his signs. Now, having returned from the south, Jesus comes to the Galilee again, where most of his ministry takes place. And if geography is important, it makes sense that he first comes to Cana, as it is on the side of the Sea of Galilee closest to Jerusalem, as he makes his way up toward Capernaum farther up the lakeshore. It is here in Cana that today's story is set. Then he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had changed the water into wine. Now there was a royal official whose son lay ill in Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Then Jesus said to him, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The official said to him, "Sir, come down before my little boy dies." Jesus said to him, "Go, your son will live." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and started on his way. As he was going down, his slaves met him and told him that his child was alive. So he asked them the hour when he began to recover, and they said to him, "Yesterday at 1 p.m, the fever left him." The father realized that this was the hour when Jesus had said to him, "Your son will live." So he himself believed, along with his whole household. Now this was the second sign that Jesus did after coming from Judea to Galilee. If this story sounds familiar, it's because both Matthew and Luke apparently tell a version of it. Only in those Gospels, it is not the official's son who is near death, but one of his servants. And both Matthew and Luke make the conversation between the official and Jesus more of a two-sided conversation. Here, the official simply makes his request, Jesus makes a somewhat dismissive reply, and the official repeats his request. Let's focus in on just one telling detail of this. As in Matthew and Luke, this is a government official of some sort, meaning he's not Jewish, but Gentile, possibly Roman. So, an outsider. That makes Jesus' dismissive response a little more understandable. He says, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." Interestingly, and this is not apparent in English translation, when Jesus speaks to the official, he's actually using the plural form of you. And of course, proper English does not distinguish between the singular and plural of this second-person pronoun. Now, we Southerners do have a colloquial second-person plural of you, y'all. So let me read that sentence again as if Jesus were a Southerner. "Unless y'all see signs and wonders, y'all will not believe." You can sort of sense the dismissive nature of what Jesus says here. Unless you people, you Gentiles, see signs and wonders, you are incapable of belief. It calls to mind the conversation between Thomas and Jesus after the resurrection, also recorded in the Gospel of John, where Jesus says, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." This lays open an important question about what Jesus' miracles, his signs and wonders, are all about. Many treat them as proof of the divinity of Jesus, but that's not what they're all about. They are signs that point to something else. The sign of changing water into wine was all about pointing to part of the nature of the kingdom of heaven, that it represents abundant life. This miracle, the healing of the official son, points in the same direction. It also points to the idea that the kingdom is about life and life abundant. Signs, in other words, are not so much proofs as they are pointers. They point us to the kingdom of heaven and its very different reality from the world we inhabit. When we return next week, a vision of heaven itself. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.